I liked Silent Hill 1 and loved Silent Hill 2, so I was looking forward to Silent Hill 3, but also feeling a little nervous. Would it live up to the games that preceded it? The answer is yes, for the most part. In Silent Hill 3, you take control of Heather, a teenage girl who is just minding her own business when she bumps into a private investigator who is hired to look for her. She ditches him, but shortly thereafter strange things begin happening, as monsters suddenly start appearing out of nowhere, and reality starts fluctuating between the relatively normal and a nightmarish variation of the real world. She tries to escape and find out what's going on, as well as trying to stay alive. The game starts off very promising, as it offers a different take on horror. In the first two games, you play as an adult male, and while they're not combat powerhouses by any means, they're still fairly capable of defending themselves, and they have more life experience. This time, though, you're controlling a teenage girl, who is not only physically weaker, but also less emotionally and mentally mature, which makes her, and by extension you the player, feel more vulnerable to the strange happenings going on. What's more, in both Silent Hill 1 and 2, the player character was in the town by choice. Sure, they were both looking for someone dear to them, but neither of them technically had to stay in the town, and could leave at any time if things got to be too much for them. But with Heather, the nightmarish surreality of Silent Hill comes to her, and she's forced to deal with it without having any say in the matter, which makes things a lot scarier. The gameplay is also a lot more effectively scary than in the first two games. While the first two games could be unnerving, and the combat was appropriately clunky and awkward, you usually were pretty well stocked up on items. As long as you were careful, you weren't likely to ever run out of bullets or health drinks, and there weren't actually that many situations where you were in serious danger of being killed. But in Silent Hill 3, the game is much more stingy with supplies, which really keeps you on your toes. There are plenty of times where you simply will not have enough ammunition to kill all the monsters in the area, and so you're forced to pick your battles, alternating between killing some monsters in order to give you some breathing room, and just running around them and away from them where possible. The game can sometimes appear generous with bullets, but the monsters can soak up a lot of damage before they finally die, and so it's often just safer to flee. The game also does a good job of mounting tension, by having monsters unexpectedly appear or disappear. As creepy as it can be to come back to a hallway that was once safe only to find that it now has bloodthirsty creatures in it, it's sometimes just as unnerving, if not more so, to brace yourself for an area you know still has monsters that you need to run around, only to find that they've all mysteriously vanished, leaving you tense and wondering where they went. The game does a lot right, particularly for the first part of the game, when you don't really know what's going on, and are just trying to make your way through the nightmarish happenings in one piece. But much like Silent Hill 1, things start to fall apart once you do find out what's going on. Without going into major spoilers, let's just say that the circumstances of Heather's birth are closely related to the events of the first game, and the evil cult from the first game returns in order to pretty much do the exact same thing as in the first game. After Heather finally makes it home and a major event occurs, she decides to go to Silent Hill in order to get to the bottom of things. And ironically, for me, most of the best parts of the game were the parts that didn't take place in Silent Hill. As I said in my review of the first game, the evil cult's plan seems overly convoluted and frankly stupid, and Silent Hill 3's attempts to explain it and continue that plotline didn't make things any better for me. It still seems really stupid and convoluted, and the attempts to explain what's going on only undermine the tension and horror by making things more confusing. What made Silent Hill 2 so great is that it doesn't focus on what the supernatural power of the town is or where it came from, it focuses on how it affects the people who are drawn to and then subsequently trapped in the town, and how they deal with that. It's also scary because we never really know what the town's goals are, or even if it has any. James Sunderland uses his journey through the town in order to come to terms with his inner demons and to find redemption in the end, but that may not have been what the town was trying to do. All the evidence indicates that the town was just trying to torment him before finally killing him. And that's what makes it all the more scary and memorable, the unknown. It also helps that all of the characters' actions are relatable and make some kind of sense. In Silent Hill 3, and by extension Silent Hill 1, the villain's plan just makes no rational sense, and the game doesn't really attempt to explain where they're coming from, other than they're just a bunch of cultish nutters. I think Silent Hill 3 would have been a lot better if it had been a standalone story like Silent Hill 2. It could still have had Heather's backstory be the same, and even let that be the trigger for the otherworldly shenanigans going on. But it should have kept references to the first game as more of an Easter egg rather than the main plot. The game could have been just as good, if not better than Silent Hill 2 if it had focused on Heather's struggles and inner demons, or the struggles and inner demons of those around her. The idea of being trapped in someone else's nightmare is a scary concept, and because a lot of the game takes place in seemingly normal places that shouldn't be scary, it could also have focused on Heather's struggle of trying to figure out if something bad is happening to the world, or if she's just going crazy. And I think it would have helped the game stand out if it didn't actually go to Silent Hill. As far as the town itself goes, I think the first two games did just about everything that can be done with the town. But when it comes to the creeping dread and otherworldly surreality that characterizes the series, there's still a lot that could be done. And to be fair, Silent Hill 3 does get a lot right. It's got great atmosphere, great pacing. In many ways, the moment-to-moment gameplay is a lot scarier than in the first two, and it has a lot of great moments. But when it rehashes plot elements from the first game, it really falls flat for me, as the first game's storyline didn't make much sense to me, and Silent Hill 3 didn't really succeed in fixing that. But while it's got some issues, I still think it's a great game, just not quite as good as Silent Hill 2. Definitely worth a look if you enjoyed the first two games though. My final score is a generous 8 out of 10. Gameplay-wise, it's better than Silent Hill 2, but story-wise, it's worse. So what do you think? Have you played the Silent Hill games? Which one was your favorite? Whatever you think, be sure to let me know in the comments below. If you like what I do, feel free to subscribe and follow me on Twitter. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.